The sun hung lazily in the sky, casting a warm glow over our little neighborhood. It was one of those perfect days where everything seemed to align just so. The air crisp, the flowers in full bloom, the sky an endless expanse of blue. It was the kind of day that could melt away any lingering worry. Today was special, a celebration of life and companionship. Today was Max's birthday. Max. My golden retriever with a heart as big as his appetite was turning 5. The backyard was a kaleidoscope of colors. Balloons bobbed gently in the breeze, tethered to the long table adorned with a paw-patterned tablecloth. Little dog-shaped cookies lay neatly arranged a treat for both human and canine guests. Max himself wore a party hat, slightly askew, wagging his tail in jovial anticipation. Everything was set for a small, joyful gathering. Yet, even amidst the tranquility, there was a crack in the calm. Her name was Karen. Karen, the self-appointed czar of our HOA, had made it her mission to uphold her vision of neighborhood perfection. She was a hawk, always circling, always watching. Her eyes were the neighborhood's CCTV, capturing each infraction with a zeal that bordered on the evangelical "a blade of grass." Too long. A garbage can placed an inch off, and her fingers would dance across her phone faster than a court stenographer's. Karen's gaze was fixed upon me, or rather my backyard, where the preparations for Max's party unfolded. She had been a specter ever since she moved in. Her presence felt even when unseen. Her first offense had been minor. A terse note slipped beneath my door, chastising the color of my front door. Though I had chuckled at the time, her persistence was a storm gathering on an otherwise clear horizon. The past month had been a litany of perceived transgressions. An errant leaf in the front yard warranted a stern email. The sound of Max's joyous bark elicited a complaint about noise pollution. Her actions were a steady drip of annoyance, but I met each with a smile and a polite nod, a quiet tolerance that was my own form of defiance. Today, as the festivities began, I sensed her more than I saw her. An unsettling prickling at the back of my neck told me she was near her disapproving gaze. A tangible force, I wondered what it must be like to carry such a weight of self-imposed duty. To see the world through lenses tinted with such a precise shade of dissatisfaction. As guests trickled in and laughter mingled with barking, I kept my resolve steady. It was Max's day, and nothing would mar the joy etched into every wag of his tail. I saw her then standing at the edge of her property, arms crossed, lips curled in a thin line. She was waiting for what? I wasn't sure, but I could feel the anticipation in the air. Charged and electric. I chose to ignore it. There was peace in the simple act of turning away, in letting my attention drift to where it truly mattered. Max bounded over, his eyes full of mischief and love, a reminder of what was truly important. A deep breath steadied me, my focus shifting to the celebration before me. In the distance there was a click, a sharp sound that seemed to echo louder than it should have. Maybe it was her camera snapping evidence of some imagined infraction. Or maybe it was just the sound of a barrier in my mind clicking into place. A quiet resolve hardening against the absurdity of it all. Whatever Karen had in mind for today, I wouldn't let it shadow our moment. Not today. Not on Max's birthday. The sun had barely set on the chaos of the dog's birthday party when Karen's vendetta took a more sinister shape. As the days rolled into weeks, her presence felt like a specter hovering over our neighborhood. Her eyes sharp as needles missed nothing, not even the slightest deviation from what she deemed order. It started with a note, tucked discreetly yet unmistakably beneath the welcome mat. An absurd list of infractions scribbled in precise, almost manic handwriting, fence 2 inches above regulation height. Gutters not sufficiently gleaming garden gnomes a supposed eyesore. Each line a testament to her fixation. These were not rules. They were absurdities. Her own creations masquerading as authority. I could almost see her perched at her window, like a hawkeye scanning for her next prey. She was relentless, a storm in a teacup growing ever more tempestuous. The community, once a tapestry of shared smiles and nods, began to unravel as her conspiracies spread like ink in water. Whispers floated through hedges and over fences. They carried tales of my alleged misdemeanors, fabrications woven with spite. She sowed discord with a precision that would make a surgeon envious. I watched as neighbors once friendly now cast wary glances. It was a fevered dance choreographed by Karen's relentless gossip. The heart of our community beat with suspicion, a rhythm she had orchestrated. One morning, a letter from the HOA arrived. Thin and official, its substantial weight belied by the paper itself. Citations for violations that defied logic. I was caught in a web of her making strands spun with cunning deceit. Yet beneath the surface a quiet defiance stirred within me. Like a river carving a path through stone, I knew her strategy: divide and conquer. She thrived on disunity, a puppet master in a suburban opera of her own design. I took to the garden where my dog frolicked blissfully, unaware of the storm. His joy was uncomplicated, a small rebellion against the chaos Karen cultivated. His wagging tail, a metronome soothing the dissonance she had created. Then came the day when reality snapped under the tension of her carefully constructed facade. She was found on my property, trespassing with the audacity of a burglar dressed in righteousness. Her presence a violation as glaring as a crack of thunder in a cloudless sky. When the authorities arrived, the irony was palpable. Her calls to them had been her sermons, warnings of imagined misdeeds. Yet here she stood, the transgressor, trapped in the very web she spun for others. Handcuffs clicked shut with a sound like closing the cover on a tedious novel. Her face, usually a mask of indignation, now wore disbelief. The very fabric of her narrative unraveling. It was a tableau vivant of irony, a scene that could only be described as poetic justice. In the quiet that followed, I felt the neighborhood breathe a collective sigh. The air, once thick with tension, cleared. Leaves rustled in agreement. The stage she had set, now empty, was reclaimed by the ordinary, the real. I turned to my dog, who sat contentedly at my feet, unaware of the drama he had inadvertently set in motion. His eyes met mine, full of trust. I scratched behind his ears, and we walked back into the peace. Karen could never imagine. The chaos had subsided, leaving only the remnants of overturned chairs and a half-eaten cake. As silent witnesses to the afternoon's drama, Karen had stormed away, her heels clicking against the pavement like a metronome of discontent. Yet as she disappeared around the corner, I felt the weight of her intrusion linger like an unwelcome specter. That evening, the sky draped itself in a deep indigo curtain, stars pin-pricking its vastness with a quiet luminescence. I sat on the porch, the cool wooden planks grounding me while the neighborhood settled into its usual nighttime symphony of crickets and distant highway hums. My dog Bentley lay at my feet, blissfully unaware of the day's upheaval, his chest rising and falling in a rhythmic slumber. I couldn't let this go, not without a response. Her arrogance was a thorn, and in that moment I resolved to document everything. Every petty infraction she had levied against me and others, every rule she had twisted to fit her narrative. My pen became a sword poised for justice on the battlefield of community grievances. I began compiling my own arsenal photos, timestamps, and witness accounts. Each piece of evidence a brushstroke on the canvas of my quiet rebellion. I reflected on Karen's inconsistencies, her need for control, a fortress built on shaky foundations. She wielded the HOA bylaws like a blunt instrument, but even instruments can shatter. The next days passed with a deliberate calm. At the community meeting, I presented my findings, cloaking my intentions in politeness. I watched Karen's face, her facade of superiority, betraying flickers of uncertainty. The board members listened, some nodding, others frowning as the narrative unfolded with the inevitability of an approaching storm. Her objections were swift, but the facts spoke louder. Like cracks in a dam, the truth seeped through, impossible to contain. My words were measured, each one a deliberate note in a symphony of subtle defiance. The irony wasn't lost on me. Karen, who prided herself on the letter of the law, found herself ensnared by the very rules she wielded so carelessly. Then the moment of irony came sharp as broken glass. She interrupted, her voice a rising tide, denying everything, but the board had already decided her trespassing had been the final straw. The handcuffs clicked softly, a subdued punctuation to her reign of misrule. Her indignant sputtering was met with silence, the kind that echoes. As Karen was led away, her world dismantled by her own hands, I felt a quiet satisfaction, not from her downfall, but from the restoration of balance. The neighborhood exhaled a collective breath. The invisible grip of her tyranny released. Bentley stirred at my feet, sensing the shift in my mood. I scratched his ears, the simple gesture a reminder of the peace we cherished. The moon hung low, casting a silvery path across the grass. And in that moment I realized this wasn't just about a dog's birthday party. It was about standing firm in the face of overreach, about reclaiming the simple joys that Karen had tried to stifle. The house, the neighborhood, Bentley, all felt more like home again. The sun was setting, casting long shadows that slid like whispers across my backyard. A few balloons from the party lay deflated, their bright colors dulled. Just like that, the chaos had ended, leaving a strange hush in its wake. Karen had been escorted away in handcuffs hours before, her indignant protests swallowed by the wail of the police sirens. I stood on the porch, a mug of tea warming my hands. Reflection was a powerful thing. In the cooling evening air, I let the events of the day replay in my mind like a surreal theater show. The dog's birthday party had been innocent enough, a simple gathering with colorful banners and laughter that floated buoyantly, punctuated by the occasional bark of joyous agreement from our furry friends. We had only wanted to celebrate Max's second year of bringing joy into our lives. Karen's abrupt intrusion had turned the atmosphere brittle. Her claims that our gathering contravened some obscure neighborhood bylaw were baseless, a desperate grasp at control. Her face had been a mask of self-righteousness, veins taut as she dialed 911 with shaky fingers. But the irony was rich. She trespassed on our property, convinced of her untouchable authority, oblivious to the boundaries she overstepped. I had taken silent steps that would speak volumes, legal steps cool and methodical, trespassing charges filed, a restraining order sought. My attorney assured me of the strength of our case. It was strange to think that paperwork could wield such power, a quiet, understated force that Karen would not see coming until it was too late. Justice in its own subtle way was poetic. The neighborhood was a tapestry of whispers. Now curtains twitched with curiosity, eyes peeking out hungry for the unfolding drama. Karen's usual kingdom of order had become a spectacle of irony, the queen's reign disrupted by her own hand. I thought of Max, oblivious to the drama, yet central to its cause. His tail wagged lazily as he lay on the porch. His trust in the goodness of the world unwavering. A lesson in living in the moment. In the distance, the streetlights flickered to life, casting pools of golden light along the quiet road. Tomorrow the world would feel different. Karen's absence a void that would echo with a curious mix of relief and speculation. The legal proceedings would follow their course, quietly, threading their weight through her carefully controlled world. As I looked out into the evening, the shadows lengthening like secrets kept too long, I felt a calm settle over me. The storm had passed, its remnants swept away by the inexorable tide of consequence. I sipped my tea, its warmth a comfort that spread through me. Sometimes the most resonant victories are won in silence with patience and a quiet resolve, and in the end it was her own misstep that had led her to this moment. The irony that would linger long after the final gavel fell a lesson in modesty, written in the fine print of the law. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the neighborhood, as if nature itself was ready to put this day to bed. Yet the air was charged, crackling with the echoes of an afternoon that had spiraled beyond anyone's expectations. The remnants of a dog's birthday party lingered in the yard, half-deflated balloons, paw-print napkins scattered like fallen leaves, and the faint scent of paw-shaped cookies. The laughter once vibrant and alive had dissolved into the hum of a quiet evening. Karen's voice still echoed in my mind, shrill and authoritative, a force that had stormed through the festivities like an unexpected downpour. She had burst in uninvited, her eyes alight with righteous indignation, a tempest of propriety and control. Her demands had been clear, her intention to restore order to what she deemed chaos. But chaos had a way of rebounding. The neighborhood watched a silent jury as the officer took her by the elbow gently but firmly, leading her away. Trespassing, they had said. It was an irony not lost on anyone. The woman who had wielded the HOA rules like a medieval sword now found herself cut by the very blade she swung. It was almost poetic, though poetry was the last thing on her mind as she was led toward the waiting car. I stood in the aftermath, a quiet observer to the scene, feeling the threads of the community weave back together in her absence. They had frayed under her watchful eye, unraveling with each new decree she issued each yard. She scrutinized each puppy. She scorned. Now, in the gentle evening light, those threads found new strength. Neighbors began to mingle, drawn together by the shared weight of the day's events. Conversations floated on the breeze, soft and tentative at first, like the first raindrops of a gentle storm. The tension that had bound them for so long began to release, unraveling in quiet chuckles and shared stories and the soft sighs of relief that punctuated the night. I could almost hear the neighborhood breathe, inhale and exhale the collective release of a held breath. Quiet, unassuming, like the rhythm of a long-forgotten song finding its way back to memory. Karen had been an unwelcome symphony conductor, her baton, a constant reminder of her presence, her influence. But now silence sang a new tune. I glanced at my dog, the center of the day's whirlwind, now dozing contentedly at my feet, oblivious to the drama he had inadvertently set into motion. His soft snores were a balm to my thoughts, a reminder of the simple joys that had brought us all together. The irony was not lost on me. A day meant to celebrate his life had instead marked the turning point for our community. As the first stars pricked the sky, I found solace in the small, unremarkable moments that unfolded around me. The clink of glasses, the shared smiles of neighbors, the warmth of a candle flickering in the dusk. Each moment a testament to resilience, to community, to the power of letting go. In the end, it wasn't the rules or the power plays that defined us. It was the quiet strength of coming together, of standing firm in the face of adversity, of finding common ground. In the wake of disorder, Karen might have been sidelined, but we were far from defeated. We were, in fact, set free. The neighborhood settled into its own rhythm once more, the echoes of a dog's birthday party fading into the fabric of our shared lives. And as I turned to head inside, leaving the night to cradle this newfound peace, I couldn't help but smile at the irony of it all.